Good morning, students. This is Mrs. Melvin, the instructional coach, and today we're really going to be talking about a variety of evidence that you can use in a commentary to get your reader to understand and see your message or your theme. So the first part we're going to be talking about are anecdotes or short stories that really stir compassion. So I love this quote by Rudyard Kipling. If history were taught in the form of stories, it would never be forgotten. Because we know that when we're telling stories, we often do this when we're talking to our friends, this one time, or did you hear about this one person? It helps people to understand our perspective. And that's what we're going to do today in our commentaries. So commentaries are unique because they really use the power of anecdotes in ways that maybe an argumentative or traditional informative paper might not. And you still want to make sure that you have a mix of evidence, anecdotes as well as quotes and facts and statistics that really help your readers see that perspective. So you're going to decide today as an author what evidence you want to include, and we're going to talk about how you also, what are the craft moves that you can make to make those effective. Okay, so anecdotes create pictures for the reader in their mind. They can picture it and they can see it. But what you want to do as the author is pick the right details to create that picture and to make sure that it aligns to your message or your theme. Okay, so here we have an author, Lucy, and she wants to create a picture that highlights really the troubles or difficulties that teens face, and especially around loneliness. Okay, so she's thinking back to a time when she felt really lonely, and she's like, you know what? The lunchroom certainly highlights this, right? So she starts off and she's like, the cafeteria smell of hot dogs and grease and somehow old socks. So here she's really playing with some setting details to introduce the reader to the cafeteria. However, these details are not the right details to get at loneliness. Okay, so she's going to get some feedback from her partner around, hey, that doesn't really help me understand your theme. I can definitely imagine that scenario. I'm there. You've added those sensory details. So let's take a look at what she did next. So Lucy takes the advice of her peer partner and she says, okay, I'm going to emphasize details about how isolating that it feels. So I'm gonna really focus on the setting around that. So here's her second attempt. It was just another lunch period in a middle school cafeteria. Looking around, one saw table after table of bustling conversation. So I still got those sensory details there. Groups of kids reached across each other, squished in next to each other, except for the table where one boy sat alone. So this change in how she's describing her setting now highlights, hey, this is going to set me up for talking about loneliness or teens and not having a lot of friends and how isolating that can be, right? And so now I'm getting to the heart of her theme. Okay, let's take a look at one more example. So this is from Leonard Pitt's article, A Twisted Joke on a Teen Girl. If you didn't get to read that, you can click here to kind of read that whole mentor text, right? And so in this, Leonard Pitts is talking about a 13-year-old girl who has a fight with her good friend, and so her good friend gets her online and Okay, let's take a look at one more example. So this comes from Leonard Pitt's article, A Twisted Joke on a Teen Girl. And we looked at it when we were thinking about mentor text. So you can click on here to see the whole text. But basically, he has the story of a 13-year-old girl whose friend decides they don't like each other, and then there's some online bullying that happens, and Megan ends up committing suicide. Okay, but what we want to focus on is what details Leonard Pitts uses to develop this story so that the reader has compassion for his message. The bullying is not funny at all. Okay, so the first thing he's going to do is really play on those sensory details. So let's look here. See, this girl, Megan was her name, was 13. Here's his details. You remember 13, that gawky, uncertain age when you're growing into a new body, hormones firing off like howitzers, right? I'm getting this picture of like hormones blowing up, right? They say Megan was a heavyset child, emotionally vulnerable as only an adolescent girl can be. They say she had ADD and she struggled with depression. Okay, so here, instead of just saying, hey, Megan was 13 and she was awkward, he really slows down and expands so that we get this picture of not only Megan, but kind of all 13-year-olds, right? And we have a lot of compassion for how she's feeling, right? And she's vulnerable, okay? And that's going to set up the rest of the story. So when you think about your writing, how can you slow down time just a little bit, add some details? You can see, the author here, Leonard, is adding some similes so that we get this idea of who Megan is, okay? Okay, in the second example, you're going to see Leonard Pitts actually kind of speed his details up, just give us what's relevant so that we get the sense of the backstory, right? So Megan had this friend, girl who lived a few doors down. Through 7th grade, they had gone round and round. Best friends one day, feuding the next, the way kids do, right? So I kind of see this whole year going by, friends, not friends, right? But it feels pretty normal. Finally, Megan broke off the friendship for good. She was done with the other girl. Here comes the zinger, the detail he really wants us to know, but the girl was not done with her, right? So he sets this up for, hey, there's some more action coming along. So again, you can think about what parts do I kind of just need to speed up and give my reader a sense of that, and then what do I want to really highlight about that action? Okay. And then his last one, she describes herself to him with an acrostic. M for modern, E for enthusiastic, G for goofy, A for alluring, N for neglected. So again, he's picking out the details that are going to help us understand why, Megan was this vulnerable person, but also make the reader feel a sense of compassion. Okay. And that's what anecdotes really do. So when you take a look at the anecdotes in your paper, really thinking about how am I highlighting the details and or slowing down or speeding up the action pieces so that my reader can really connect with the story as it relates to my theme. So you're going to have a chance to do that during work time, but let's first talk about some of the other evidence.